teenager, again, for people that don't know the story, as you become a teenager and you are so uh, so much better than kids your age, but before you even get into high school, right? I mean, you were already starting to make waves. Is that why the media started to catch on to this kid who really stood out, or what do you think was the original reason that people started to look at you?
Well, I think that what caught people's attention was no freshman in high school had ever started a varsity football game in my area here in Southern California. And so that's what grabbed people's attention. And I was always playing with older kids, and that's, I think, a huge part of it. And when you look at families with a bunch of boys, it's usually the younger one that is, because he's been playing with his older siblings. So it just makes sense. That's not rocket science there. So I always felt that I was playing with more mature guys and older guys, and that was the case.
So, what was that like for you though, as a freshman? I mean, I know that any
Scary.
freshman, yeah, going
I was
into that
scared.
first year of high school, kids probably don't like you and are like,
Yep.
who the hell is this kid taking
Right.
away our spot as a quarterback? So, what was that moment like when they told you you were starting the game?
Oh my gosh, that was and you're right, because that period was far greater than playing at the Coliseum against the New York Giants. It was scary. And the dynamics of the team, the older guys, the juniors and seniors, of course, have they're all buddies, and I was coming in as the new guy. It was uncomfortable. Uh,
Were they mean to you? Did they like
they
you?
weren't nice. They didn't go out of their way to be friendly, but I had confidence that my play on the field would win them over,
Right.
and in time it did. Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. All right. So let's get into, so again, for people that are listening, you are succeeding so much earlier than you really should be in life, I guess.
Yeah.
And at some point, you are turned on to doing some extracurricular things without your father knowing. I mean, you're still
Yeah.
living at home, right?
Yes.
You're not in college yet, but you do. Is this the first time you try pot? Is this the first
Yes.
thing you tried?
Yes. I was
And you
15.
talk about that as like the this eye-opening moment, like where has this been in my life?
Yes. Since then, I've talked with hundreds of people about their first time and their first experience. And 15 is kind of late um, from my research I've done.
Hmm.
And it was pot, and I snuck a couple hits off a cigarette one time, so I knew what inhaling smoke felt like, but I never felt the effects like marijuana gave me. And I was blown away to the point of where has this been? It was my solution. I was like, thank God I have something now that can ease this tension that I've been feeling my whole life.
And did it just calm you down? It
Yeah,
made you, yeah.
yes, and
So
it
and
it quieted this up here,
right.
and I found that sports and athletics does that naturally. It places you in the moment to where you're not thinking about what's going on at home or with your girlfriend, and it's magical in that sense. And so is art the same way with that. It takes you from the day to day mundane.
Right. And it helps you compartmentalize, it sounds
Yeah,
like. Yeah. Okay, so now you talk about quiet in your mind. I'm just curious to understand you a little more. It's obvious what the stresses were, right? I mean, you're trying to compete at a level
yes,
that no one else can, essentially. Plus, you have the pressure of your father making sure that you are living up to your potential, and who cares what your team does, but it's all about you. So,
yeah.
I'm just curious from your words, though, like what was so choking almost that was released by being able to smoke pot? What were you trying to, what was so tough on you?
There's so much going on, I think, for any kid at that age that having, I just didn't feel, or even if I could even articulate what I was going through. I don't even know if that was possible at that age. I just, and I wasn't out looking for something to change. I didn't even know it existed.
Yeah.
So, um, it just, it fit me just so perfectly that, and it worked for a long time. And that's
Right.
the kind of the insidious nature of substances. They do work.
Right. So actually, I'm curious about this because I know that
I
you're
see that, Rachel.
well, your addiction turned into different things and
Yes.
harder things later. Listen, my father died of a cocaine overdose at
Oh,
44 and I was 15. So that's why I'm
I'm sorry.
curious because, I've, listen, I've tried everything.
Yeah.
I always was very nervous that I was going to have that same addictive personality and not be able to stop. So I didn't get into like the harder stuff, but marijuana's never worked on me. It just doesn't work. And
Yeah.
it makes people that I know lazy and
Yeah.
not my thing.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if now that you've gone through all the different things that you've become addicted to,
Yeah.
do you believe that pot is something that is a good thing and do you continue to do it or is it something you have to quit all substances to be sober?
Well, for me, I can't dabble or not go back and forth. It's really has to be clear. Um, and it worked. Like I said, it worked for me for a time. And is it good for? It could be good for somebody and not good for the next person. So it's hard to say. I just, I think it's important that young people know their family history about substance abuse because I totally believe a big part of it is genetic, obviously, and then environment plays a big part too. But and today's different with the strength of these drugs, and it's just a different world, and it feels so much more dangerous today that
Right.
I don't want to say that it's harmless. Nothing is harmless.
Right. So even though it's legal in certain places, that's not
Yes,
something that
and I
you
think that's
believe.
great that it is. I truly do. I'm for that. Let the person decide if they want to put it in their body or not. Don't tell me what I can, that type of thinking. Um, but for one in recovery, I think it's dangerous waters.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on from that, then you move into college, and once again, you are the starter as a
Mhm.
freshman, which again, I think as I was reading this and watching this on the film, that it must have been again really scary, and you felt probably a lot of pressure from the older kids that were like, "Who the fuck is this kid stealing my spot?" But you killed it, right? I mean, you walked in there and showed everybody who you were, and it seemed like you immediately became part of that team.
Yes, and the thing about the game of football, the quarterback gets far too much attention. Um, because it's really about your supporting cast. And it might seem cliche to say, but I just walked into a team that was loaded with talent, and they just needed a guy to take the snap and not turn it over. And I did that to the best of my ability, and we got to win a Rose Bowl and have some really cool experiences. Yeah.
So what I've heard from other athletes is like winning at the Rose Bowl is like the equivalent of like hitting the biggest peak ever and you could officially die after that. Like nothing good could ever happen to you like that again. Is that how you felt?
um, it was a big moment for sure, and it's hard to describe the feeling of playing in just like a front of 100,000 people that are passionate about what you do.
Right.
It's 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 it, it's really amazing, and but I knew that that wasn't going to last. I don't think you can have those too many times in one lifetime. It was special for sure.
Right. And as you get into college, you again start to, I guess, get into some deeper things. You got into cocaine, you were partying, right? Am I getting the timeline right?
You're right
Um,
on.
and do you think that had to do with why you started to have some issues with your coach at the time? Or
100%.
okay, okay. Well, I didn't know if it was a personality thing, if he reminded you of your father. Like,
Oh
I want to hear
yeah,
from you what those issues were.
for sure. I didn't know it then, but Coach Larry Smith was my coach at USC at the time, and he just took on the role of my dad, subconsciously. So everything he said, I was doing the opposite. I was like a teenager, rebelling, and I feel for him. I mean, being put in that situation. I don't know how I would have handled myself. Not like he did, but I don't know if it would have been any better.
Right, right. So, and again, for people that don't know the story and are listening, there were times when, and correct me if I'm wrong, obviously, he would make a play or call a play and you would kind of change it up and
Yeah,
you would still do the right thing.
uh,
And it would just created this tension.
a lot of tension,
Yeah.
and at that time of my life, I was super rebellious. I was fighting everyone and everything, and that's part, I think, of being young. And so, being a coach, I coached. Today, I because of my experience, I try to be understanding.
Hmm. Yeah. So, for people that do know your story, a lot of people think it's just because once you went finally to college and you didn't have your father over you, this is why you had this rebellion. And this is why you started to put drugs in your system and eat whatever foods and not stand in a dark room and bounce a ball and stand on a balance beam because you were no longer being trained that way. Do you
Yeah,
think it had anything to do with actually leaving your father's sight, or it was just you growing older?
I think they just went hand in hand as I got older. At that time of high school, 17, 18, I was coming to the end of the daily regimen with my dad. I think it's time we go our separate ways. And it wasn't discussed, but, and then I fell into, like a lot of freshmen do, that go to college. It's, nobody's waking you up, nobody's making you anything for breakfast. So you get a little exposure to what life is like. And some people blow it up and are out of school within a year.
Right.
Others seem to manage it better. Yeah, you never know. And I, I do regret leaving college early. Looking back on it, I was having so much fun at USC, and I just felt like the relationship with the coach was so severed that I had to go to the NFL. And there was no thought of transferring like today. Guys move all over college, from college to college. And I couldn't think of playing for anybody else.
Right.
Yeah,
So playing for the NFL, was that at this point like a dream come true,
for
or it just
sure.
was the
For
next
sure.
path? Okay.
Yeah. Dream come true. It's my earliest memories are wanting to do that. It was like, what else would I want to do? It made sense to me, and especially with what I was being exposed to.
Right.
I mean, a real football family. Yeah.
Right. So, and as you're in the NFL, you're still dabbling in all these things and you're living in LA, right? It was the LA Raiders at the
Yes.
time.
Yeah. LA Raiders.
And were you, I mean, I read that you were hanging out with Charlie Sheen and doing all these things. Is this because you had been so famous for so long that they all saw you as a celebrity too and you played for the Raiders? Like, how did you get within that crowd?
Gosh, it's a good question. I don't know if any of them really knew my story up to the point of, I mean, when you're the starting quarterback for a professional football team in a big city, um, I was kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
But and I
So
had a lot of
everyone
fun.
wanted to hang with you and
Yeah.
everyone wanted to give you drugs, I'm sure.
Some did, and I was welcome to that. I was completely open, and I I really didn't give myself the best chance if that was what I wanted to do.
Right.